Welcome to Behind the Barnwood. This is a podcast where we take you behind the scenes of Prairie Barnwood, where we talk about our craftsmanship, connection, and running a family business. I'm here with Blayne. My name is Natalya. And today we're diving into Barnwood. We touched on it in an episode a couple weeks ago, if you saw that already. And we're going to be touching on it more in depth, talking about where we started with Barnwood, why we're named Prairie Barnwood, and all things rustic wood. Have you ever had any weird requests for, or maybe not weird, but kind of out of the box, super crazy furniture requests?
Yeah. A couple that kind of catch me right offhand is we had a customer bring in a Jaguar dash, and we had to refinish most of the It's a burled. That was a bird's eye maple, and they wanted us to match some of the other pieces. Up in Churchill, for Churchill Wild, we built a whole ton of woodwork for their Tundra buggies that go out and look at the northern lights and the polar bears and all that stuff. So we built dashes for them and kitchenettes in these Tundra buggies, so when they're out on the water and ice, they can serve their guests and stuff. So that was really cool. I'm trying to think what else we did. We built some airplane parts before. Some wooden airplane parts. I built a 22-foot long dining table. That was pretty wild.
That is.
That was huge. I don't know if I even know that many people.
True. To fit
around a 22-foot table.
How many people does that fit?
Well, as a rule of thumb, each person takes up 2 feet. Mm-hmm. So 22 feet, you'd be 11 people on each side. And then at least one on each end.
Right.
So 24 people.
That's ridiculous.
Comfortably.
It was like a castle.
Yeah.
That you built it for.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. I'm trying to think what else we built that's really bizarre. Another project was a customer with a building in Winnipeg. It was an old building they were renovating. He had some doors out of this building that he wanted to use in his cottage. And they were out of refrigerators and stuff, but maybe they were out of freight elevators. Maybe that's what it was. So we went to his building and reclaimed these doors, brought them back to our shop, stabilized them, refinished them, stuff like that. And then he wanted the sliding hardware to go with it. And so I had heard about a guy with an old train car not far from our shop that he was getting rid of these train cars. So I went to the train car and I removed, so it would have been like an 80 or 100-year-old train car. I removed all of the sliding door hardware out of the train car. And then I married that up to these doors that came out of this customer's warehouse. And we drove them to Kenora and installed them. So he has these sliding doors in his cabin that the door is from his warehouse and the hardware is from a turn-of-the-century train car.
That's wild.
Yeah, that was a pretty cool project. Yeah. Another one was I think it was 25 feet in diameter. It was a round bar that we had built for a customer in Calgary, for a bar downtown Calgary. Well, that was a fun job.
Was it like a restaurant or was it like a home?
Yeah, no, it was a restaurant.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was huge. Had to build it in 4 or 5 pieces and deliver it and put it together on site. And yeah, that was a fun project.
When you get custom pieces, how long does it take for you to basically design it? Because when you get it, and normally I'm sure all of these were just ideas from customers.
Right.
They're like, hey, can you do this?
Yeah.
How long does it take for you to decide?
Right.
Or, I mean,
man, you're zinging them off today. You got good questions.
Thank you.
That's a fantastic question. So, like a commission piece, when somebody wants to go ahead and get a commission piece done, they can have as much involvement with it as they want. So it usually starts with about a half an hour phone call, email, in-person appointment, whatever works best for the customer. It's nice if I can see pictures of the space. This bar, I flew to Calgary. The customers flew to me to Calgary, and went to the space, looked at it, measured it up, and then flew back to Morden. Spent probably like the average custom piece, the first pencil drawing probably takes 2 hours to pencil draw it, and then get dimensions to it. And then I'll send that to the customer by email or a picture of it or whatever the case is. If there's adjustments to do on it, I take it again. Sometimes I have to redraw it depending if the design is on par or not. So it's probably 2 to 4 hours to get the design. And then once the design is down, then I will do drawings of the technical drawings. So like with doors open, what the doors look like, what's in the drawers, behind, underneath, on top. I still pencil draw, but we do have a fella, Devin, on staff that does CAD drawings. So yeah, the actual drawings for the shop, depending on the piece, can take anywhere 2 hours to 10 hours to do CAD drawings. Once the CAD drawings are done, then it takes another hour to 3 hours to do material lists, to tell the guys in the shop what to cut. And so yeah, you can have anywhere, 6 to 12, 14 hours into a job.
Wow.
Before it actually starts to get built. Yeah, just depending what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we talk about lead times a lot, especially when people come in. Customers will come in and ask us, like, what's the timeline?
Right.
Does that count, all of the design things? Are you taking that into consideration?
No.
No.
No. No.
I guess, what does the lead time even mean then?
Yeah, so that's, zingers. That is a good question too. So a lead time would be, well, from the customer's perspective, once they place their order. So to place an order, we go through the details, get drawings, all that kind of stuff, depending if it's a commission piece or a standard piece from the website that's been customized. So they get a work order with all the details. If it's a custom piece or commission piece, then they get all the technical drawings with dimensions to sign off on. We ask for 50% deposit. Once we receive the deposit, then the lead time starts. So 4 to 6 weeks to build a standard piece. When we get really busy, then that lead time stretches a little bit. Commission pieces typically take 8 to 12 weeks because of the technical drawings. So yeah, I guess it does get included in there. Lots of times we have to order in specific hardware. We have to learn how to use the hardware, how to install the hardware. We do not build pieces that are commission pieces without the custom hardware in stock. So if your piece it's a commission piece with custom hardware that we've never worked with before, we will bring the hardware in. Once we have the hardware, then we do our actual final material list, because if we have to edit anything depending on the hardware, then we do our material lists, then it goes to the shop. When it goes to the shop, your piece is cut and 100% assembled with the custom hardware. Then we take it apart as much as we can. It goes to sanding, finishing, bring it back, and that's where we assemble it again with the hardware. So a lead time is from the time that you place your order until you receive it.
Okay.
That's a big question.
Yeah, it is. To jump back to the Barnwood conversation, are we still taking barns down? Are we? I say we.
Yeah.
I'm not the one that takes them down.
You should.
Oh yeah, me out there.
Come out and rip a barn down. That would be fun, Tal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'll be the next vlog.
Yeah. Natalya ripping a barn down. Yeah. I had this one fella, his name was Nick. He worked with me. I loved Nick. He was a fantastic guy. And a big burly guy, and looked like he could rip someone's head off if he wanted to. And so he came out to rip a barn down with me just south of town here. This was eons ago. So we get to the barn, and the way I rip barns down is I gut the interior first. So I take out the corral fencing, take out the floorboards of the hayloft, and And so it's pretty primitive the way that I do it. But when I started, so this would have been like 15 years ago, Nick was with me, and we get into this barn, and I wanted to remove the hayloft floorboards. And it was dry as can be. The hay was out of it, the barn was empty. And so I grabbed a board, and the roof was probably, like the ceiling, we were on the main floor, and the ceiling was probably 10 feet above, like 10 feet high. Mm-hmm. So I grabbed the board and I started to hit the hayloft floorboards from underneath to pop the nails up. Mm-hmm. And as we're doing that, the 100 years of dust and dove and loon pie fell in our faces. So we're hitting these floorboards up, and dust and poop and everything is falling in our faces, and we're breathing it. And so we go out and we tied rags around our faces and we put glasses on and go back in, and we're doing this. Nick did it for probably 10 minutes, threw the board down, swore a little bit, and said, "This is for kids." And he walked out. I was like, what are you doing, Nick?
Where are you going?
Where are you going, bud? Like, we're ripping a barn down.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think after some time he came back in and we kept going at it. But so through the process, if you do want to rip a barn down, a word from the wise, I call myself wise because I have gray hair now, is to do it just after it rains. You rip a barn down after it rains in the summer or spring or fall, not on a hot, dry day. And when you do it after it rains, the boards don't split, the nails come out easier, and you don't get as much dust in your eyes. But we dismantle the interior of the barn. And then what we actually do is you go through the barn, all the main support beams, you cut them like a tree. And so you slice them with V's so that it's all going to go one way. And then we bring in a backhoe and just push it over. And then it's on the ground and you can strip the whole barn. You can do it when it's standing up. If you have like a lift, like a forklift that'll take you up with a bucket to dismantle it. I didn't have that in the beginning. All I had was 2 legs and a heartbeat. And I had Nick for a while. So, like I say, when I started, it was just very primitive. We made some tools for making it easier to pull the boards off and stuff like that. So, but over time, like as you get going longer and longer and you dismantle more, you get better equipment and you can do it without pushing the barns down. But yeah, that's how we started doing barns. Did rip down barns in this area until probably 7 or 8 years ago. And then I connected with some old colony Mennonites. So almost, I guess, Amish. They ride horses and buggies and a very simple, primitive life. Actually, really an attractive life.
Yeah.
And so we moved all of our barn reclamation to Southern Ontario. And so that's where we take our barns down now. I found the barns out there were older and bigger. So the barns in southern Manitoba, and that would carry through into Saskatchewan and Alberta, are all typically from the Eaton's catalog in the 20s and 30s, where Eaton's would sell churches, community centers, houses, and barns out of their catalog. He was the first Amazon of their time. And so you'll find a lot of Eaton's barns right off the rail line. And they would bring them in from BC, deliver them by rail, take them off. Farmers would put them up and on they go. So the barns in this area are all like 1920s and 30s and newer. The barns out in Ontario are more of a, well, they call them like an Ontario-style barn, where they're kind of built on a hill where you can drive around the top to the hayloft, or you drive around to the bottom and you can get into the main floor of the barn. And the barns are mid to late 1800s. They're built with local material, and the boards are just bigger. So like main support beams in barns in Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Alberta are either 6x6 beams or they're like 2-inch by 6-inch boards put together, like nailed together. And then the main support beams are like 2 inches by 8 or 10 inches, and then nailed together. Whereas the Ontario style barns, the biggest beam we pulled out was 24 inches high, 16 inches deep, and 32 feet long.
Oh my goodness.
It was huge.
That's wild.
Yeah. And the main support beams are 8 inches by 8 inches or 10 by 10. Mm-hmm. And the siding boards of an Ontario style barn are like 1 inch thick by 8 to 12 inches wide. Mm. And the boards run up and down. Whereas the barns we see in the prairies, the boards are horizontal. Mm. And they usually have a little step down. So when you're reclaiming that, you only have about 2 inches of wood. Ontario style barns, you actually have 8 to 10 to 12 inches of wood to work with.
Wow.
So yeah, just bigger wood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The difference is so wild.
It's so crazy.
Yeah.
I think because the Ontario style barns, like Ontario, hey, this is a history lesson, but I'm totally out of my league here. But I think Ontario would have been settled at a different time than the prairies. Mm-hmm. And I don't know whether resources were just more out there or what, but usually every 100 acres there's a barn. In Manitoba, Saskatchewan, and Alberta, you don't get a barn every 100 acres of farmland. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, it's pretty amazing. I'll go out and I can't call. Adam is my fella's name there that rips the barns down with us, and I can't call him. He doesn't have a cell phone. He doesn't have a telephone. It's absolutely beautiful. I'm envious, but I have to write. I can like type out a letter, and then I email the letter or fax the letter to his post office that is in their area. The post office prints it off and puts it in his mailbox. And so that's how I have to communicate with Adam. So each transaction takes about 2 to 3 weeks to go back and forth with letters before we finally get our order. And I can't talk to him on the phone. He will call me if he's in town and he goes to the post office. He'll call me on a payphone. But that's the extent of our conversations. So lots of times I'll fly out there and just go meet up with Adam. So the one time I was out there, it was fall, and pulled up to Adam's house. And his house is a 2-story house. It's a beautiful house. 100 acres of land, a nice barn. He has animals and horses and stuff like this. So I'm on his yard, and I knocked on the door, and some of his older children answered the door and said, Adam should be here shortly. So I just asked, is it okay if I just wait in the yard for him? They were like, that's fine. So I wait in the yard, and I could hear this dinging in the darkness, and there was a little bit of fog, and at the end of the lane, I could see this one horse coming in with a cart behind it. And Adam and his wife were sitting on the cart, and Adam's steering the horse. It was cold, so Adam's standing on the cart and he's steering the horse. He has this leather jacket on, or a fur jacket, I forget, a hat, gloves. Little bell is ringing. There's a little bit of snow on the ground. Fog is there. So as he's coming through the fog. His wife's sitting beside him with a bonnet on and a little blanket. And it was amazing.
Yeah.
I was like, this is amazing. I love it. And so Adam pulls up and he's like, welcomed me to the farm and stuff. And so his wife went in the house and he says, I'll be right with you. I just got to put the horse away. So he unsaddled the horse, or not saddled, but like unhooked the horse and put the horse away and put the buggy away. And we went into his house and we're sitting in the entrance of his house. And there's kids everywhere, and his wife's sitting by the wood stove reading a book to one of the kids. I said, hey, Adam, how many kids do you have? And he says in his accent, he says, Well, I have 12. You have 12 kids? He's like, yeah, I have 12. It's a good start. Holy smokes. And he's only like 2 years younger than me, and this was probably 7 or 8 years ago.
Yeah.
Just amazing. Just lovely people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely incredible. So there's a community of people that live around them. And that's where we reclaim our barns now. So, yep, the Mennonites help us reclaim our barns.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Last question to round out this episode.
Yeah.
Do you miss taking down barns?
Oh, I do.
What do you miss about it?
I think it's being on the farmyards, and it's so quiet. And you can see animals, and as you're taking the barns down, you're getting a feel for the history of what went into starting this farm. And, you know, the settlers that came to Canada, whatever, I guess 150, 200 years ago. And the dreams they had and the hopes they had. And to me, it's like you get to crack a book open and start to read through that family's history. And even in the, you know, one barn we took down in particular was out in Manitou, like a half an hour from where we live here in Morden. There was 150 hay bales left in the hayloft when I got there to dismantle this thing. So we had to throw all the hay bales out of the hayloft, and you could see, you know, over time, like where they've tracked weather and what crops they put in, and there's old ropes and old hardware, and there's the I don't know what it's called, but there's a main beam in the barns with a track on it, and I guess you would rope up the hay bales and then move them on this crane and put them down to stack them. And so there's the old rope up there and the hardware and just the story and history, and you get a glimpse into each family's like history and story, and I love it.
Yeah.
That one farm, I had a friend, Wes, was helping me take that barn down. I think it was spring, late spring. And we're out there and it's a quiet day. It was warm. We're taking this barn down, the two of us. And we're looking up at this rope and this pulley system and all the hay bales. And we just shook our heads at each other. And I went up to there was still a stack of hay bales, so I went up top of the hay bales and we started swinging down. And
Did you actually?
we were having a great time. We probably spent a good hour swinging on this rope.
That's so funny.
Into the hay bales. Oh, we had a great time.
Yeah.
Yeah, had lots of fun.
With that being said, thank you so much for watching this episode. If you loved today's conversation, we want to hear from you. Leave us a comment, send us a message, like this video for more to come, and we will see you in the next episode. Bye!
Bye.